Live from the J.C. Newman Cigar Studios and the Gurkha Cigar Studios in the great state of New Hampshire. Welcome to the Smokin Tabacco Show with your hosts, Matt Tabacco and Pat Chamberlain.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Matt Tabacco from SmokinTabacco.com, and I'm not joined by Mr. Pat Chamberlain because he's not here. I don't know where he is. I guess he just didn't get the memo tonight that we were doing a show. And it's disappointing, but, you know, not everyone can be an A-list player. No, I'm just kidding. Pat is running late. He should be here very soon. As a prosecuting attorney, he was stuck in a case today in the courtroom, and he couldn't get out on time, which I totally understand. And I said, hey, listen, you got to do that. So do what you got to do. Just get here when you can. And he should be here any minute. So he'll be here. He'll be here soon, and he'll be here. It'll be a great time. But we do have a guest with us tonight. As I continue to just finish, getting us all warmed up and ready to go. This guest is newer to has a brand that's newer to the industry, and it comes very highly recommended as a show guest. He was on another show, no names mentioned. You could probably figure it out. This guy, I don't know, what can I say? I mean, he was the sexiest guy in the industry who told me. So, I mean, you can figure it out. The guy who was seen wearing khakis at Pro Cigar last week that, made Fabio put to shame. He said, listen, you got to have this guy on the show. He's fantastic. And I said, all right, well, let's give him a run and see what he's got. And his name is Vlad from Somm Cigars. Let's bring him on here. Vlad, how are you? Look at him. He looks great, too. Put a jacket on, Although, holy shit.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, but OMG, look what just walked in the studio. You want to talk about sharp. I mean, oh my God, I want to rob a bank just so this guy has to put me away. Wow, look at this. He's got the hat on too. Oh my God. I hope you leave that on with the headset. Like you put it back on over. Like, here he is. Pat's back. Look at this dude. Look at this guy. Oh man, I'll kill someone just so you can arrest me. Look at this guy. This is hello, sir. This is nice. I'm over here in my sweatpants and my show shirt, and this kid's pulling out
I'm in my suit that was graced by Mike.
Smell good too. What is that? Is that Sauvage by Dior?
Yeah.
Oh wow, look at that. This guy, he knows what he's doing. Sorry, Vlad. I wasn't expecting all this.
No, fully. I absolutely appreciate that, especially you calling out the perfume. That talks about your tasting abilities.
Dude, he left no detail unturned here. I mean, like, Jesus. Wow. Anyway.
I feel underdressed.
How do you think I feel? Anyway, you're the guest tonight. It's all about you. Fuck him. So.
I mean, I don't know. Depending on how the nights go, and I don't know if guys has to take you out to dinner first. Like, I don't know what your.
I don't know. I don't know. We'll see. I mean, I'm going to make you the priority. I just hope that Pat doesn't steal the show away from the guests, because really that's what it's all about. But anyway, look, all joking aside, thank you for being here, Vlad. I think last year at PCA, my wife met up with you at the show, which, it's a big show, a lot of ground to cover. We split up. I don't get to see everybody and vice versa. So, but I remember she met with you and she talked a lot about you. She's like, oh, they were really cool and he was a good guy and the cigars are pretty cool. And I said, oh, that's good. And then I was talking to Koo about you and he's like, oh, I had Vlad on the show. He was a great guest. He has some good cigars. And then I finally ran into you at TPE last month and I was like, okay, yeah, everybody was right. This dude's all right. So, and you had a couple interesting things that you were doing, which I don't want to say yet because I want to save it for later. But but we'll definitely get into that. It's some unique things, which I think are great, especially for a brand that's on the rise. But hey, before we get too deep into it, let's talk about a couple of things to help make this show happen, and then we'll kind of get into it. Now that Pat's here, he can also participate, and we'll go from there. So, first up, our cigars of the evening are, as always, brought to you by the best, the number 2. That's right, the number 2. GuysCigars.com. Head over to 2guyscigars.com for an amazing selection of cigars and accessories from brands you know and love, and maybe a few that you haven't. Order a little bit of both. Don't be afraid to try something new. Only at the number 2, GuysCigars.com. Now, Vlad, you're our guest. I'm going to let you go first. You can talk to us about what you're smoking.
So I am wrapping up with the Connecticut offering from Somm Cigars. So this is Bordeaux Blanc, which translates to white Bordeaux. Owing to my sommelier background, which kind of the whole brand leverages. My background is hospitality. I fell into cigars through my love of wine. Back in 2009, I did my sommelier training, and we had 2 days of just cigars. So one day was just theory. Second day was actual pairing with both non-alcoholic options, alcoholic options, which I actually think a lot of people sleep on the NA stuff. So I've done quite a few pairings since then, and then I slowly went from one cigar every 6 months to one cigar every 3 months to one every month to more often than that. And right, that was wow. Now I feel vintage. Over 15 years ago at this point. Over time, I read a bunch of books, worked with a number of different cigars. At one point, I lived in Europe at the time. I was overseeing 5 different humidors, which required, no different than a cocktail menu or a wine list or a menu tailored to specific needs of that environment. So we had an all-day dining club. We had a prefix menu only high-end restaurant where we served with white gloves. So all different, very unique environments. I did the Habanos training back in whatever it was, 2011, 2012. I did a study on vintage cigars as well, visited Cuba, moved to the States, and kept up and learning with my on my wine side as a sommelier. Then got cigar certification here, brought European brands, and then 2022, I think, I finally ended up making Somm Cigars as a little passion project, and then it grew into a full-fledged brand about a year ago, like a year and a half ago. It was originally only available in 13 stores after the 13 colonies, and the original 13 stores that I had. So it grew from there to now over, don't quote me on this number, but I think 117 stores, which is pretty good for a year and change in the market.
That's a lot of stores. I don't know if people realize how many stores that actually really is when you sit down and you think about it. I mean, sure, I mean, there's a lot of brands that are in thousands of stores, but like you said, for the time frame, that's pretty good. That is pretty good.
It helped that rather than me tell the retailers what they need to do, I just listened. I just listened, asked questions, and made it work. So if you see one of our Somm boxes, everything's going to be barcoded. Everything's going to be a 10 count. Everything has the blend explanation in there. The BDX ones, which refer to Bordeaux, a famous wine region in France, they actually have the boxing date. Pardon me, a boxing date on the bottom. So if you go back 6 months, you can know when they're actually rolled. So what I do is I just let everything sit before it's boxed. Then it ships to the U.S. and from there to the retailers and ultimately to the end consumer. And then this is the Blanc. So this is the white Bordeaux. Both the Blanc and this one carry the same Burgundy band, and the reason for that is Bordeaux is primarily known for its red wines. However, the much rarer and I want to say equally good and highly rated white Bordeaux it's one of my favorite styles. It has this beautiful. The calling card is vineyard peach and walnuts and almonds. I know Luigi just commented we need some more Premier Cru. That was actually the first cigar that was made, and I'm gonna take a segue here and just kind of describe about that.
Sure, please.
And my Cigar Unbanded guys are here. That's amazing. Hi guys. So to Luigi's, and I'll get to Jason's VDX as well. So the Premier Cru was done with Henry Kellner Jr., and it's the cigar that had over 50 years worth of aged tobacco. It was made in the largest vitola that could actually support this wrapper from 1997, which there were only like 2 or 3 bales. And it was a 6x49 coned pyramid. There was only about a little under 3,000 cigars made, and I made the cardinal mistake of selling all of them. So as far as I know, they're all sold out. I know there are people that still have them, and they retailed for $30 at the time, or $150 for a 5-pack. 7 coats of lacquer, beautiful green box. The box was made essentially to correspond to what a wine looks, a vine, right, like a grapevine actually looked like. So there was cedar to indicate the actual tree trunk. There was a bright green to indicate the leaves, and then the burgundy color was meant to correspond to the actual grape on the vine. So there's
Oh,
a whole
wow.
reason that if you look at the box, the actual logo, the actual Somm cigar logo, has actually, you can, maybe the camera won't really pick it up, but on the sides you can see that there's a bunch of grape leaves that turn into tobacco leaves, kind of signifying my journey from wine to cigars. So really thought out. So yeah, I made a cardinal mistake of selling out all of them. And as far as I know, I know where 3 cigars are for sure, provided my dad hasn't smoked them. So I have 3 cigars in Europe. I brought them over, smoked it with my dad when I visited last, and we had a great time. He really enjoyed that cigar. I was very proud of it, and so am I. Picked up a lot of praise. I remember it really was an incredibly complex cigar. I did a very detailed tasting with the notes that are about 2 pages long. And then Jason asked about the BDX. So the BDX was the first cigar that was regular production. I fell in love with it for one simple reason. I tasted I want to say 2022. I tasted 100%. Do you mind if I actually mention a different brand? It was kind of pivotal to what I did.
Please.
It was Plasencia, and I want to say it was the Cosecha 149, which was 100% Honduran Puro.
This is a good cigar. Yeah.
So someone gave it to me, actually a rep when I was somewhere in the Midwest. Gave it to the store owner, right? This just launched, and I believe it was either October or November. So they gave it to me, or rather the store manager gave it to me, and I smoked it blind. He's like, you smoke cigars, like, what do you think? Right? They're like testing. I'm like, all right. So I do the cold draw, take a couple of puffs, work through the cigar, and I go, all right, if I had to like pinpoint what this is Nicaragua. This is probably 100% Puro. And if I had to guess, this is Plasencia. And the guy goes, you know what? You're right on everything, except it's 100% Honduran. And I go, wait, what is Honduras doing that I'm unaware of? So I call Sebastian and Brian from Cavalier, who are good friends, fly down to Honduras, and I ask the same question that I ask any factory. What do you have that's rare, unique, or old? So they gave me all the tobaccos that I could work with, and I ended up smoking this Honduran broadleaf. Now, Honduran broadleaf at the time was essentially not present in any cigars, and to this date, as far as I know, there's 3 cigars that use it on the market, mine being one of them. I smoked the Purito of it, and it was completely different from what you're used to with broadleaf, right?
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't like Connecticut, the meaty, gritty, almost this just big and bold. It was quite the opposite. It was extremely flavorful, right, on a scale of 1 to 5. It was a solid 5, through and through. But the flavor profile was completely different owing to the Honduran terroir. So you'll end up with bourbon mash. That's kind of the best way to explain it. But if I want to be more specific, it's cereal grains. And then something that really isn't present or very rare in cigars, it comes off with this beautiful plum and raisins note. How often do you run into flavors in cigars? That really isn't something that's that widespread. So I really fell in love with it. But then came the question of, how do you introduce something that's completely unique? You make it different but familiar. So I decided, okay, I need to balance out that innate sweetness by using something different. So I use Mexican San Andreas, right? That's going to give you the dark earth, the cacao, that definitely like the earthy flavors, the dark chocolate. And then to balance out that, I added Viso Jalapa to add the baking spices. And if you imagine your spice rack, right, on the left, you're going to have your cinnamons, your nutmegs, your star anise, your allspice, and then just milk chocolate as sweetness, as an underlying sweetness.
Yeah.
And added the same in the filler, which I'm going to ask a very, very interesting question. Like, when's the last time you've really seen San Andreas in the filler? That's not a widespread filler tobacco.
It is used from, it's predominantly a wrapper tobacco, but yes, you're right. It's a fair point.
You're right. primarily used as a wrapper to highlight all those beautiful flavors that come out of Mexico. And then, so you get San Andreas, Viso Jalapa, San Andreas in the filler, Viso Jalapa again, and then Honduran broadleaf. And you essentially end up with this cigar that, depending on the format that you use, which is also important because I do blend everything to size rather than say, okay, make a Robusto Toro, whatever. I'll go back and reblend it so that it delivers exactly what I. Thank you, Larry. Looking forward to your feedback. It essentially, let me take a step back. Each format in my mind is a story. And the question to that story is, are we doing a Hemingway interpretation of the story where you're going to have a very almost reporter-like, very clear, very concise, very precise presentation? Or are we doing Tolkien where you're going to get three pages describing a tree?
Right.
So your Robusto format might be closer to Hemingway. Your Toro might be somewhere in the middle. But your 6x60 box press might be a Tolkien that has a much more gradual rise, a much more gradual crescendo leading to that, high point of the cigar. So in each of these cigars, primarily, especially in the first, let's say, quarter to half an inch, you're going to get a lot of impact from San Andreas. Like I mentioned, primarily the cacao, the dark chocolate, the earth, followed by the baking spices. And then about half an inch, maybe 3/4 in, that's where Honduran broadleaf just starts slowly coming up from the background. And what I really wanted to do in all of these formats is highlight the Honduran broadleaf rather than have them be a backup dancer. I wanted them to be Beyonce. I wanted them to be the star of the show. And in my opinion, the one that highlights it the best is that 6x60 box press because there's an extra half leaf of Honduran broadleaf. So that those plums and raisin notes that I mentioned, as well as the cereal grains, / bourbon mash, is really intensely highlighted in that format.
Yeah.
And yeah, so ended up buying, I don't remember the exact number, but enough bales from that 2020 vintage because they already said this is going to be something rare, this is going to be something different, something unique. So we need to kind of protect supply chain essentially. It was enough bales to do about 50,000 cigars. And that was the initial run. And then we moved through it. And in 2023, it was August or September, they said the new vintage came in. And essentially the take was, hey, it's the same. And it's agriculture, so things are never the same. In fact, I wish I was at Pro Cigar to hear Michael Herklotz talk about how are you going to retain the same blend composition when you end up running out of a component. I really wish I would have had a chance to hear him speak about that because that is very, very interesting.
Yeah.
Essentially flew down, smoked them side by side. I still had like a little bit of left from the previous one, so I went through maybe 5-6 bales, pulled them out, smoked them side by side, and they were not carbon copies, but they were essentially the same. So we ended up buying a lot more to essentially double the amount. And kind of protected it until the next run is ready. When the next vintage is ready, then I'll fly down and do the same thing to make sure there's consistency. It's the blends themselves are closer to, and I know I'm geeking out, so if anybody wants to stop me out, please do. It's closer to what you do with champagne. So if you're unfamiliar with how champagne is blended, and when I say champagne, I mean the non-vintage stuff. So your Veuve Clicquot white label, Moet Brut, whatever else. Essentially what they do, they keep something called reserve wine, which can be anywhere from a couple of percentages to all the way to 20%. And they keep wines from previous years to use as a blending component to keep the consistency. And if you've ever had a chance to try, I was lucky enough to do a tasting where we had Veuve Clicquot from like 1992, all non-vintage, by the way. So no designation of the actual year. From like 1992 to 2000, I want to say like 8 or 9. And the incredible consistency from 1992, right? You take away the age because there's obviously something that the tertiary notes that develop from just aging. It was incredibly consistent. You could definitely see where it started, where it was in the middle, where it is now, and what it's going to change. But it was an incredible consistency. So I aim to do the same with cigars, and I think all great brands do the same. They're prized for their consistency.
Well, I will say, I mean, you've given us a lot right up front, which is great. I mean, you're definitely all over this brand. and you have a vision and you have a passion, and I think that's great because you need that if you're going to grow a brand. I see some people that start these companies and these brands and they come out with stuff, and it's like, I don't want to sound like that guy, but I have to be that guy. And Pat, you've been around long enough, and you worked in retail, so you've seen some things come in and out. Some of these companies that pop up, or brands, some of these people, it's just like this like little side thing that they don't really know what they're doing, and which is okay because you have to learn, but they don't really attempt to learn more. It's just like, I got a guy who blended these and they're great, so try them. What else can you tell me? And then it's like, all right, the cigar might be great, but you know, you have to be able to sell it. You got to be able to tell the story. I mean, like, all the great brands, they have a great story, they have a background. It's part of it, you know what I mean? And you see some of these people come around, and it's like, if you're gonna do this, do it. Be all in. And I've seen too many come and go over the years just because they just didn't have enough passion for it. And I think that, unfortunately, it's sad. But hey, that's life. And I'm gonna pause you right there for a second, just so we can move through a couple of things, and then we'll kind of get back to our conversation. And then, just as a heads up to everyone else, we are going to be doing a Saka contest tonight, which has kind of changed, but that's okay. We decided to go a different route with it, and I hope all I'll say is, I hope you, if you're here for the Saka contest, I hope you know your Micallef pretty well, because there's gonna be some questions about Micallef, and Pat will hold the answer to this one. He's smoking a Micallef over there. He's got the Papa Saka, which I know you like. You're a pretty big Saka guy, I think. And Vlad, I'm smoking your Corojo, as we talked about before, which is fantastic. And the first time I got to smoke your cigars was at TP. I smoked. I think I smoked everything. They were good. They were really good. I was really impressed. I was like, wow, this is a great, these are great cigars from, a cool brand that's up and coming. And a couple other things, which again I'm going to get to in a second. I don't want to give it away, because I'm going to let you, come at it with what I'm thinking. So I'm really, really excited for you. But yeah, no, cigars are great, and I know you're working with Cavalier, which has been another company and factory, and just kind of everything they're doing. That the last several years they've made some strides, and they've put some nice stuff out on the market. So nice move with that, by the way. Yeah, once again, twoguyscigars.com. That's where you get your cigars from. They are the best customer service. And while you're at it, just like us every week, light up your cigars with an SD Dupont, featuring the new Gradient Collection Line 2 Dancing Twin Flames. It's funny, Pat. I don't know if I talked to you about this, but I found a company out there. There's an ad on Facebook that pops up, and they have you remember the 007 Line 2 with the hole in it? It's supposed to be like the bullet chamber with the twist. So I saw one of those, and then this ad, and I said, oh, are they selling one? That's cool. Because, as we like to collect, pieces. And it was not that. It was a knockoff for $86. And it even pings. It's got the roll flint on the side.
I think I've seen that before.
Have you seen that?
I think I have.
Yeah. And I said, that's a knockoff. And I said to myself, oh, that's interesting. And I sent it to Les. And he did say that Paris is aware of it. And I think they're looking into it. But I was like, oh, wow, shame on you, ripping off such a well-known classic.
Yeah.
I mean, damn. Not even trying to hide it either. They paid for Facebook ads and everything. I'm like, oh, you're in for a rude awakening. Such a blatant, copy. Not even just, a Line 2, but, a very specific, iconic, limited edition, I think, 200 pieces were made lighter. You know what I mean? Just so, wow. That's what you chose. And being another Dupont guy, I know you'd appreciate that story.
I'm sure there's a lawsuit coming.
Well, you're the legal department, so. Which, by the way,
I got a great story about that 007. Very dear friend of mine who's a master retailer, been in the business for 25 years. He had a 007 because they're all numbered, right? The
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
007, right? So the 007 number. And this is maybe 2 years after the limited edition already went out.
Yeah.
And I forget the number, whatever. Let's call it $100 just for the sake of argument. But he priced it at like 350. So I go, look, no one's gonna buy that. Like, that's just insane.
Yeah.
He goes, my friend, but someone wants to feel like James Bond.
It's true.
And it sat there. And about 3 months later, give or take, I came up to the. Oh, I love the question from Community Lover. I'll dive into it. I came in and the lighter did sell because again, someone really did want to feel like James Bond.
Oh, of course.
So
Who
if
wouldn't?
you click on that Facebook ad, make sure it's 001. You might be able to sell it for 250
You know,
instead of 89.
Pat wants to feel like James Bond. He's already got the apparel down, and he's a Dupont guy. So, I mean,
Perfect.
Do you like to live dangerously?
He's just a Vesper away. He's just a Vesper Martini away.
Yeah, that's it. Right?
Make it happen. Make me a Vesper Martini.
I mean, not at the moment. I can't, but I will.
Shit service.
Shit service. You get better service here than you do anywhere else. But yeah, no, you're definitely a James Bond kind of guy. I can see that. I don't know how dangerous you can be though. That's the only thing. You're usually pretty quiet, but then again, it's always the quiet ones, right? Isn't that what they always say? It's the quiet. So I mean, he is very quiet. He's a very quiet kind of guy. So I mean, I don't know. We might be on to something here. He has all of the right qualities, Vlad. So I don't know.
Neighbor said he was a quiet guy.
Yeah, I don't know.
Smokin Tabacco.
I don't know. I might not survive. I gotta watch myself around Pat. He's secretly a super spy. But anyway, so yeah, shake up the legacy at ST Dupont. Now, Vlad, one of the things I want to bring up with you was kind of the latest thing that you're working on, which I found very interesting. When I saw you at TPE, when I first walked onto the floor, I actually was looking for Matt Booth. And when I found Matt Booth, he was with you. And he was looking at what you had set up in your booth. And this is something that you guys are also doing with your brand, which, I like when I find companies who are trying to, especially a younger, newer company that's trying to get a name for themselves. How do you stand out amongst, the giants? You do something different. You do something that gets attention, that's in a good way, hopefully, and which you have done. Sometimes other people, not so much. But you had something interesting. I'm like, oh wow, that really caught my attention, and I'm sure it caught a lot of attention. You had a 3D printer set up at the booth, and it's like, why is there a 3D printer set up at a trade show booth for a cigar convention? Well, as I recall, you are now 3D printing your boxes.
You're right. So the 3D printing kind of came around from couple of reasons. I'm testing it out because I don't know if anybody else doing this. Granted, someone else might be doing it as well. But I've decided to do it for the BDX Blanc because they ship in 5-count packs with outside label that's meant to evoke a wine label. So raised, embossed, all these other things that kind of add the tactile sensation to it. But I didn't want to make a simple wooden box because I didn't think it matched what I wanted to do. I kind of wanted to push the envelope, right, starting with the Honduran broadleaf to some other things that I'm doing. I'll touch upon the Rioja things that are made at Eladio Diaz's factory. But that 3D printing thing was essentially twofold. One is, how can I protect my supply chain? Meaning that I'm a small brand. Right. And when I do order, 1,500 boxes or whatever I'm ordering at the time, those lead times might be anywhere from 2, 3, 4 months. But then working with Dominican Republic or Honduras or Nicaragua or wherever else the boxes are made, it's a moving target. It's not, they might say it's Tuesday, but they never tell you which Tuesday. It might be next Tuesday, it might be Tuesday 3 months from now, it might be 6 months from now. So I essentially said, how can I insulate my supply chain from this while ultimately delivering a great experience for the retailer, making sure that it aligns with what the brand stands for, which is selected by choice, meaning that Someone actually said recently to me, "You're very picky," and I said, "I'm not picky. I'm particular," which is very, very different. I said, "Okay, how do I make sure that it aligns with everything that I hold and stand for? Which is how do we carry myself with integrity, make sure that everybody I work with, we're very particular who we work with, how we work with, what tobaccos we use, essentially from start to finish, that drives the overall vision for the brand." And I decided to 3D print. I spent about 2.5 months on the design. But what it gives you a 3D printed box where you can put both the Toro and the Robusto and the BDX Blanc on the Connecticut side. And it gives you all the information on there. And they're raised, embossed, right? Going back even to the logo where we made actual little grapes on there that you can move your finger aside and actually see it transform into tobacco.
Right.
And then probably for the holidays, this is still a work in progress because I've only started doing this about just before New Year's. We're going to do 3D printed sampler boxes where people can get a nice gift for someone. If they're not familiar with the brand, they can just try it out and see how it goes from there. Really something different. And again, mostly it was to protect my supply chain. And I also want to add an extra layer, but this is further down the line. I want to be able to customize those boxes. Ultimately, being a good host is making sure that the experience is tailored to you as a guest. And I do consider every single person that picks up my cigar my guest. So I want to make sure that they have a great experience. I want that experience to be tailored to what they like, especially in those boxes. So in a situation, let's say, I don't know when your birthday is coming up, you can text me later and maybe I can build something for you.
Not till
But it's
December,
like,
but yeah.
hey, oh, I got time. I can figure out the design by then. But how cool would it be to say, Matt's 21st birthday, right, on the box, or specific, exclusively made for Matt. It might be a different format, might be a different design, might be the same design, whatever, right? Like truly to customize. And then customizing it for the lounges themselves. The idea why I made those boxes be able to fit both the Toro and the Robusto is essentially to answer another question for the retailers, which is, I don't have shelf space, right? In a retail store, shelf space is your moneymaker. The more you can fit on that shelf, the more hypothetical, right, return on investment you can get.
It's like real estate.
Exactly. It's shop real estate. So rather than do, a 50 count box that takes 3/4 of your shelf, I made a smaller box that can fit both options and offer them to your guests, or rather your customers.
Yeah,
And
I mean,
kind of the
it makes a lot of sense. And I like the idea myself. And I like how you want to go more custom with it down the road. I guess my only question to you is, as you continue to grow and your production continues to multiply, is it something that you can sustain in large quantities over time?
Great question. I love the question. So one of the first questions that I asked was, can this be scaled? And the scale is very simple. I just buy more printers.
Sure.
Very simple. So instead of having 2, I'll have 6. Right now we have them on they just came out with an additional add-on that can push the box when it's done and start printing the next one. Because right now there's a lag. The warehouse guys are not there all the time. So once the box is printed, they'll remove it, have the next one print, etc. But with that add-on, it can literally be pushed to the side and get the next one printed automatically. So the uptime will go from 8 to 10 hours a day to 24/7 if we need to. And then we just figure out, okay, how many of these do we need? And then, do we need to scale? Do I need to buy 4 more printers? Do I need to buy 20 more printers? In which cases, that's probably overkill, but who knows? Maybe I get to 1 million cigars by my next birthday.
So, if I may, I have one question on that.
Go ahead.
So is there a scent that comes off that material in the boxes?
It does not.
It doesn't? So
it does not. It's
okay.
Completely, it's food grade, so completely inert. It has no scent. It's completely biodegradable. If you chuck it out somewhere out here, it'll degrade in a couple of weeks. And it's fantastic. Really, it's sturdy. It looks good. I specifically went with the desert tan because it mimics wood. A little lighter than this.
Oh,
so
yeah.
It mimics wood, a light, like a white pine. That's really what it looks like.
That's good because I found that a lot of the time you see people get fancy with different type of packaging. There's always a scent to it.
There's
Like a lot of
The
people use
factory
that.
smell.
Yeah, like a lot of people do like that felt interior, and you get kind of
Yeah.
that kind of
So those fumes, Pat,
rubbery.
that you talked about, the fumes that stay there, typically you need to leave those boxes 24 to 48 hours before packing and like doing things. But if we go back to that, hey, I need those boxes, right? In their interest is to move as many boxes as possible, and in your interest is to pack those boxes as quickly as possible, and etc. Rather than wait 24 hours, 48 hours, 72 hours, however long it takes until it off gases, essentially. Then you add a what's the word I'm looking for? A material like cello that is going to essentially keep those gases in. So when you crack the cello open and you open it, you get hit with fumes, especially from painting, right? If they're lacquered or just spray painted on or something else. So you're right. I wanted to avoid that as well. There was not a secondary consideration because I typically now I got to I got to take a step back. So the way I handle my production is a little bit different than probably most people. So I'll make the first production, and once it hits 3 months, right, once the cigars are actually done, I'll put the second production in line. By that time, the boxes will already be done. But remember, I won't pack them until 6 months, until they're at 6 months. So by the time the second production is done, the first production is at 6.5 months. They go into the boxes. By this time, the boxes have already off gassed. Perfect. You got the picture.
Boom.
Right? I love it. And then you can see in the back the BDX box. So I make sure that they off gas so you don't get that experience. And it happened only once, and I obviously called it out because I really do a pretty strict quality control. And I'm like, hey guys, this didn't need to be. We could have just sat 2 days. Shipping on a Friday versus shipping on a Wednesday doesn't change anything. So making sure that there's no off gassing. And then once that second production is done, right? So now first production is at 6 months, second production is at 3 months, the third production is going in. So by the time the third production is done, the second will be at 6 months, but the first one has already been on the market. So essentially, I always have a line of cigars coming back to back that are at least 6 months old or rested. Actually, I don't like people when they say aged for 6 months. That's not really aging; it's just resting.
Right. I wanted to point out while I had the box in front of us, and we can actually visualize this because I remember I have all the photos of this box from our TBE coverage, and so on the left side here, you have the Robustos, you have the Toros on the right, and then this block here, isn't this removable? So you could put Toro and Toro, and then so even inside the box, it's configurable.
Yes, and then for that little block, so this is like a 90% where I want it to be, and a couple of other things that kind of stuck out when I actually put them on the shelf. The Robusto where it says under 10, that's going to go a little bit up, so you can see it when it's angled in a shop. The Somm is going to get a probably different colors so that it stands up, probably the same color as the lid, and then on the block itself, I'm going to put the Somm logo. Or once I get to a point where I can actually customize them, I might put the shop logo or something else.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, you get plenty of options there to play with as you move forward. I thought this was great, though. When I saw this, the cigars were cool, but I think that this, again, it's that whole nobody cares about packaging, but yet everybody does. When we talk about packaging in this industry. I thought that this kind of stole the show because I liked the idea behind it, and you seem to have a good plan for it, and you seem to have a good execution for it. And what we saw at the show was very intriguing as kind of like that first look of what you're doing with this. And I think it's cool, and I think it's something that, again, it's unique, and I know not everyone will do it, but if it works for you, I think that's awesome. And it's as time goes on and the generations change, you get younger smokers. Younger people love this shit. You know what I mean? The older guys, no respect. I love those guys, the old school smokers. They don't care about this. This is new technology. This is oh, what's that nonsense? But the younger people, they see this and they're like, oh my god, those are 3D printed. You know how people are. If you're under the age
Yeah.
of like 35 and you say 3D printer, people are like, oh shit, like they get like they just get all excited about it. So, it's one of those things too. It's a head turner too, but it's functional, and it works. And as I said, you have plenty of options as you move down the line with this to continue to enhance it, customize it, whatever. I think it's great. So, I'm happy that we were actually able to talk about this tonight because this was one of my favorite parts of TPE, of the few things that were there, because it wasn't the busiest trade show, as you know. This was one of the things that really stood out for me.
Thank you. That you're right on everything you pointed out, and I would say that the show, I wouldn't compare it to PCA just because last year I was absolutely slammed. Just every moment, every day, just couldn't take a deep breath, which is amazing.
Good, that's
TP was
great.
a little bit different, but it came in droves. So I would get super slammed, and then there would be a quiet time for like 15, 20 minutes. And then I would get super slammed again, which is great. I like TP, plus it helps that, I'm based in Vegas, so it was down the street for me. I love everybody like, where are you staying? And I'm like, at my house, 15 minutes south.
Yeah, I'm at home.
It really helped.
Which is good. I mean, good for you, dude. Take advantage of it. Yeah, it sucks that it's in New Orleans. Now you have to travel.
And then,
But
yeah, absolutely. And then, if you don't mind, let me see. Humidity Lover asked about the humidity and its role in aging cigars.
sure.
Twofold. I'll just do a very brief, without like diving into the intricacies of it. I've been working with Boveda on trying to do a little bit of a test on how humidity affects the cigars. And what we're doing is we're doing the same cigar at 3 different humidity levels. The point is we don't actually tell you which cigar is at which humidity level to kind of take out any bias and preconceived notions. Essentially, my only question is, what did you like the most? Now, I have people smoke 2 cigars side by side, and primarily we've had really, really experienced smokers, but we're going to try and expand this. For the first time, I'm doing it somewhat of a remote way with, do you mind if I mention specific retailers?
No, go ahead.
Okay. So we're doing this with Boveda and Small Batch, and you should see their marketing shortly. What they're really trying to do is we're going to have the cigars sit for 4 weeks at a certain humidity. So it's 65, 69, and 72. Then we're going to send them out 2 weeks 2 weeks before the actual event, so they can stay at the current humidity and then have a chance to rest. And then we're all going to smoke them together, and people are just going to have their own essentially and say, I liked A, B, or C. The goal of that is to get a statistically significant number of people. So ideally, I would like to get 1,000 people, which might take a little bit. But if we see that humidity, let's say 65%, is winning at like 500 people, and by winning by a huge margin, then I might just extrapolate that. But the idea is to essentially have people say, I like this. We've done it in last year. We did it in a retail store with about 30 people, and myself included, I didn't know what humidity the cigars were at, right? They were just marked. We all smoked them together. Myself included, and the Boveda guys all missed the humidity, which is incredibly funny. I keep most of my cigars at 65%. That's just the humidity I enjoy smoking them at. Most lounges will keep them at 72 or around 70, which to accommodate the fact that the door gets opened 700 times a day. Right, especially in Vegas, like our
Legs are dry.
is,
Yeah.
a little bit. You can't see my hair curl, but like it does at high humidity. But really, that's kind of the point. As far as long-term aging, to my knowledge, there's no real study. Like nobody sat down and like, okay, over 10 years, like this is what humidity does. I know some people keep them at lower humidities, like 65. I've heard some people keep them down at 62 or even lower. I personally don't. And some people keep them at 69, 70. So it does play a role. As to what kind of role, I don't know enough. There hasn't been any real data. It's all anecdotal, meaning, oh yeah, it's best if you keep them at X. Humidity will have an impact on the oil evaporation, depending on, right, if it's higher or lower. It might evaporate more or less. And then the easiest way to figure out if a cigar has dried out a little bit or more is typically it'll be pretty bland and almost like a blank in the first, quarter inch, half an inch, maybe even an inch, depending on if it really like lost a lot of its oils. And then it'll actually come back to life. So that's typically a good benchmark of like if things have maybe dried out at some point, if they lost some of the oils, but it's not an exact science. My experience with aged cigars goes, I believe that the first change happens between 3 and 4 years. So we're talking about development of tertiary notes. Essentially, you're tasting time, similar to wine. So the first change happens about 3 to 4 years, for me at least. And this is based on like a couple of hundred cigars that have, maybe more, a couple of hundred cigars that I've tasted at that age. Now, the second one happens between 6 and 7. That's like the secondary addition to those tertiary notes. And again, this is based on maybe a couple hundred cigars. And then the next one is 9 to 10, typically. This is on a much smaller because how many really 10-year-old cigars that are like consistently kept, how many boxes of 10-year-old cigars that all come from the same source, all have been kept, like I have smoked a very small number of those. And then the next change after that is around 12, 13, and then 15 plus. 15 plus I've maybe smoked less than 100 cigars, and they're all different. It's not like I had, multiple boxes of like 15 plus year old cigars, all coming from the same box, all coming from the same source, all coming from etc. So just those are my anecdotal experiences with aging and the changes that happen. I'd love to read any kind of study. If anybody else has experience, like please chime in. I'd like to learn more. This is just all based on my experiences. So I know that's not a perfect answer, humidity lover, but essentially put it on your own preferred way and forget about them for a little bit.
So I will say this. I'm going to bring up something else, and then while that's going on, I'm going to revisit this quickly with Pat. If you're here for at the 9 o'clock hour, we have our Saka giveaway, our Dunbarton Tobacco and Trust giveaway. And we held a photo contest. People don't like to take photos, though, is what we learned. People love to talk shit. We learned that one last month. This month, people don't like to take photos. So, scratch that. We're just going to do this live. So, we're going to throw something out there. Hope you know your Mickey Ritas. I said it earlier at the beginning of the show. This is your warning now. I would go grab one. I'm trying to stall as long as I can. I would grab your Mickey Ritas if you have any on hand. Doesn't matter. I think they're all the same for this. Go grab one now. And this is what it's going to be. And it's the first person to get this answer right. Now, Pat, you know the answer?
Yeah.
Okay. So Pat knows the answer. So Pat, I don't even know. So you will have to tell me which one is the right one. But Pat is the brain trust over at Smokin Tabacco. He's definitely smarter than I am. So I'm going to rely on him for the math here. But whoever can tell us, the first one to get it right, how many of the little points on the Mickey Rita band there are.
Papasaka band. Just do Papasaka.
On the Papasaka. All right, let's make it easy. Papasaka band. If you have a Papasaka, Mickey Rita Black, Papasaka, the smaller one. Okay.
I'm going to 12.
You're going with 12?
12.
That's a little low, I think. Just by looking at it, it seems a little low. But how many of the little points? Now remember, it's like on the top of the band and on the bottom of the band, right? It's top and bottom, right? So how many of those little points are on the Papasaka band? All right. And the first person to find it and get it right, you're going to get a box of DTT and a DTT mug. Okay. And if you've been following along, we have some cool stuff. We have some cool stuff over there. So last month we gave away Sin Copper Miso number 4. This month, I don't know, we have Sobra Mesa. We got Moeso de Saka. We have some other stuff in there, but we'll pick something random. We got boxes. We got boxes, boxes, boxes. The first one to get it right, you get a box and you get a mug. Now, having said that, while you guys are figuring that out, because I'll give you some time, okay? I'll give you some time. All the comments, put it in the comments. Whether on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, all the other programs, just put it in the comments. I can see them all. Now, while you're doing that, so, Pat, I don't know if you can keep track and talk at the same time. If not, then I can try to steer away from this.
I can multitask.
Can you multitask?
Okay.
I don't do it very well, but I figured you probably could. So while you're keeping track of that, I wanted to go back to the conversation we had with Vlad here about the humidity. Now, you worked in retail, and you worked in a humidor. Now, do you? And I don't know, maybe not. I don't know, but do you know anything about how your particular humidor was kept? Was there a certain number that the store liked? Did it change depending on the season? You know, do you know anything about that? Did you have control over that? Was that more so management?
So, I mean, I have kind of my own experiments I've done just out of fun, not really using much science.
Using the store's humidifier?
Using my personal. I'll give insight in both.
Okay.
So, personally, what I did was bourbon aging with cigars. I have different mini barrels at home, and I have different climates inside. So I would do like 60, 65, 72 with the bourbon inside. So then I just kind of tested out. It was all the same cigars from the same boxes, and just see like over the months how much was absorbed and what was kind of the flavor adjustment based on the spirits being in the barrel. So what I found was, and I did different temperatures too. I have wine coolers at home, so I put some inside of a cool environment. I kept some by the window where there's some sun coming in. I just kept some in the basement.
Yeah.
And again, I did 65, 70, 75, or 65, 69, 75.
Okay.
So
75, not 72.
I said 72 in the first. 75.
75. Okay. Yep.
Which is a lot. Like that's
high.
That was more of just like I just want to see what happens.
Yeah.
And what I found was, and I have no science to back it up. I'm just doing random shit. The most aggressive difference was with the 75 because, again, and I think this is similar to if you're not using the spirits. I mean, it's moisture, it's oils. So the more heat there is, the more evaporation there's going to be. And that's why if you keep a cigar out of everything, you keep it in the sun, or you keep it in a dry environment, it gets like cracked and it just loses its flavor. Like when you revive a cigar that's been dried out in your, dad's car for weeks, and then you rehumidify it, it's like you're smoking paper, and it smells like mud. It's gross. So it's all about kind of those oils. And I mean, we talked about this in the past, like when you have like leftover food, like when we do like meatballs, like when you make the meatballs and you eat it, it's good, but then when it sits for a couple of days and you reheat it, those ingredients and the spices, everything's kind of married together. So it's kind of keeping a controlled environment where it's not going too fast and it's not going too slow. So I found that, again, I'll go back to the original point. At the 75, it was very aggressive. It was, obviously I needed to dry the cigars out. I kept them on the table for 2 days so it can get down from 75 to something that's more smokable. But the bourbon was just very aggressive in those samples. Very aggressive. It was like barely any tobacco. It was just like you dipped a cigar in bourbon and that's what it tasted like. And then 69 was actually a lot. Like still pretty. It wasn't as aggressive as a 75, but it was still like inherently sweet. There was still, like, if you did the retro hail, you could still get some traditional tobacco, but it was still overpowered by the bourbon. And I use bourbon rum. I use the Capa 23 for this. And then the 65 was the best. And now I did it over stages of like a month, and then I did 6 months, and I did a year. I actually still have some of the barrels now. So the most recent time I smoked them was probably in the mid-fall, and that would have marked 3 years total doing this. And within that period, every 4 months, I have a 1 ounce shot glass inside. I would open it up and check, and I've only probably used 2 ounces total because I don't want it to just be, most of it's going in the wood, I found.
Yeah.
But at the 65, it was the most balanced. It was just it was a significant difference between the 69 and 65. And the 65 being in the wine cooler, it was just a very subtle sweetness from the rum. It was still like a traditional cigar. Like if I gave you it and I said it came from the store like this, you would have believed me. It wasn't like some kind of infusion. And the only thing I take away from that is when it comes to aging, in my perspective, is a cooler temperature with around like a fair humidity, like 65, not over humid.
Right.
It's going to be a slower process, but it's going to be more refined. again, I'm using spirits, so going to just natural tobacco, I mean, I didn't do it. I'll go to the retail setting for that answer, but for my personal experiment, I found that cooler temps, 65 humidity was a way to go.
Yeah, interesting.
Which is pretty intuitive, again, because when it's really moist, I mean, it's not a healthy aging environment, right? And then if it's too dry, the oils are just going to evaporate out of the cigar.
Right.
So that's my 2 cents on that.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about, and Vlad, I mean, like, you talked about this before as well. I mean,
that's genius. I'm just gonna start off with that. So with that aging, no, seriously, there's a whole reasoning behind everything you just explained, like a scientific reason for it. The way you did it at 65, 69, and 75. If we go back to the spirits, there's evaporation happening, right? The angel share. So I don't know Scotch humidity off the top of my head, but I know Kentucky is 60 to mid 70s in the summer. So cigars themselves are hydrophilic, meaning that they're going to pull whatever's around them into right whatever's in the environment. So the way when you put them in that humidity in the barrels at higher humidities, they essentially ended up pulling more. And at higher humidities, you're going to get higher rates of evaporation, meaning that in Kentucky you might lose 10%. But if you're making rum in, say, French Guiana or Dominican Republic, where the average humidity is 75, 80%, then you're going to get a lot higher evaporation. That's why you don't really see, 12, 15, 25, 30-year-old rums, because the humidity, the portion loss is so much higher. Or India, for example. India makes Scotch. Because of much higher humidity compared to Scotland, they'll lose something like 18 or 20% in year one. So if you have a barrel that's 300 liters, 225 liters, or I don't know what it is in freedom. It's 150 gallons. Let's call it that. You're going to lose 20% of that right off the bat year one, meaning that your, prices are going to go up because you're just losing so much to angel share. And with you aging it at 65, 70, 65, 69, and 75, different rates of evaporation, and then obviously the wood that's playing a portion. More aggressive evaporation happens at 75 versus 65. So you figured it out. You nailed it. Kudos to you for running it, especially for 3 years. Jesus Christ. Congratulations on the patience, man.
I told you,
really.
Pat's, I don't know. He's the smartest one here. I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't have the patience for that. I'd give up after a few months.
Well, the thing that prompted that entire experiment was two different aspects. One was one of the first humidors I got was just a wine cooler, and how it's like, I forget what the brand is, but they're pretty common now. I think a lot of people have like those plug-in, looks like a refrigerator. It's a humidor.
Like the New Air ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I had that, and I just found that, now I hated the smell inside of them. I hated it because it smells like machinery. So it smells plasticky. It's
Vlad, would you call it
the cooling system?
A wine door.
No. The smell. It was like the off fuming or something. Off gassing.
So what you need to do when you get a cooler like that, first thing you do, take isopropyl alcohol, right? Like take Everclear 190 proof, and then literally just wipe it down. The alcohol will evaporate. Take vodka. Really, you just need alcohol to rub all of that down, and then you leave it open so it evaporates, and you're good to go. Otherwise, that plastic inside is going to off gas. Now, if you're using a wine, who cares? That's not getting through the cork. That's not micro oxygenating. Essentially, there's no exchange of gases.
Right.
But with cigars being hydrophilic, it might pick up. Now, whether or not you'll take plastic, probably not. But you're 100% right that there is that plastic machinery, almost industrial smell to it. And cigars are not industrial. Cigars are handcrafted works of art. Smokable art, but still art.
Right.
So, because me not knowing how to do that, I had like these. It was some event. Like Alec Bradley did was it Alec Bradley? I think it was. They had like it looks like it's a barrel. It's a little mini barrel.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, so I had a bunch of those, and I'm like, eh. So I started doing this experiment, and then when I was with this wine cooler, I'm like, oh, it looks like a like an aging warehouse at, you know, Jack Daniels, because it's all these barrels are just, you know, in rows here in this wineador. And then I remember, like, I was talking to Kurt one day about one of his barrel selects, and he was telling me that there was a barrel that was at the top of the storage, and it was exposed to a window. And then there was one on the bottom of that rack, and then he had drank from both of them, and the one that gets the sunlight exposure was like very, like, it was strong. It was much stronger, more fuller bodied, to where on the bottom, where it's a little bit cooler, it was more kind of mellow, you know. And again, on paper, it's supposed to be the same spirit, but because of the different locations, which when you do barrel selections, like, they teach you all that, it's you know, there's a lot of facets to play into it, but it was that significant difference. So I was like, well, let me kind of experiment with that with aging cigars, you know. And I would say, even if you eliminate the spirit component of this, I think the results would be the same if you just age the cigars, because again, it's all just based on the oils and the evaporation and just like the cooler temperature. And I think a lot of people, that's why those cooler doors are a good idea, because I think when you age a cigar, it's best if it has a little bit of like 60, you know, like 60 degrees, 65, if you want to go to like maybe like the mid 50s, but just a cooler environment, I think, does well for cigars. Just not like freezing, obviously.
Right, yeah, you don't want to do that.
And it's also good because some people, like in the summer, depends where the humidor is, you don't want to get, you know, beetles, all that. So it's good to have some cooling mechanism to your cigars. But as for the humidor, like in a retail setting, I mean, the idea with retail, obviously, is you're hopefully not going to be sitting on a cigar for a long enough period that someone's going to be like, oh, is this one aged? You know, you want to...
Yeah.
So, but, you know, it's just one of those things that, in the retail setting, the door gets open so often. But also, you have to deal with... Not everyone knows how to cut a cigar, unfortunately.
No.
Most people don't know how to, like, the right way. Not that there's any right way to smoke a cigar, but there's safe ways to cut a cigar. And you have to factor in human error when someone's cutting it. So you ideally with a retail humidor, you want it to be above 70, just because it's gonna survive that component.
Yes.
Like if you I like to smoke.
Like if you overcut it.
Yeah, because I keep everything at 65,
point.
with the exception of Nicaraguans. I don't know. I'm weird. I do towards like 70 for Nicaraguans. I don't ask me why. It's just the way that I prefer smoking it. But everything else I do 65. And at 65, if say you take a cigar out and, like, I'll say it's, you know, like a fall day or whatever. You just take it out. You're going someplace. Say I'm going to the shop. I want to travel with this cigar. And I sit down for a little bit. I'm talking to people. It's going to dry out as you're smoking it when it's out of the humidor. So at 65, you have to, you know, be ready to smoke that cigar.
Yeah.
Whereas people, you know, will buy from the humidor and they'll travel home. They might go to a barbecue. They might do whatever they're doing, and then they're in like this little, you know, sealed bag. Which the sealed bag works for a period of time, but depending on what the conditions are.
It's not long term.
Yeah. So you want to factor in that in the retail setting, which is why I think that the rule of thumb is 70-70 if you can, but if you're going to go under or over 70, it's going to be over 70, just not drastically over 70. So 72 would be a safe kind of, you know, manageable humidity in a retail setting.
Yeah. I always find this conversation interesting because everyone always gives something different, pretty close, but it's always different. Like we did this with Pete Johnson last year when he was on the show. We spent half an hour talking about this, and he talked about they had just built a new warehouse, or moved it. I don't know. They had at the time they had a new warehouse, I think in Miami. And he talked about how he made the whole warehouse a humidor, and he was able to seal it and get it all right. And it took him some time, but he went into great length explaining about how they were able to make not just like a humidor inside the building, but no, they made the inside of the building a controlled humidor environment, because, you know, when they have the pallets come in with all of their inventory that has to go out, I mean, you're talking about a substantial amount of product. And he said we wanted to make the whole place controlled, you know, not have like a cooler that we put them into, or there's a humidor that we're in. Like, no, we made the whole space controlled. And it was tricky, but I remember he said, and Pete's very, he's another one of those guys that he's really into this stuff. He was like, I mean, I could talk about this for 3 hours. I mean, he like, and it was a lot of the similar stuff. Some things were different, but like, again, I always find this, and we always get these questions from the audience, and I think that's great. And sometimes I see this question come up, and I'm like, I know we've been asked this hundreds of times. I know this has come up on other shows, but I continue to always acknowledge it because there's always somebody out there who wants to know, and it can help them. And there's really not one really perfect answer, but there's a lot of good suggestions and things based off your experience, like you said, and like Vlad was saying before, that really can help somebody. So.
And there's no wrong way to do it. I mean, we see it.
And the where you live is different too.
Yeah, everything's different. Like, I mean, for instance, in Vegas, everything smokes different in Vegas. If you're smoking in New England with the, bullshit snow,
Oh yeah, up here
much different,
It's gross up here.
But even look at, I mean, if you if you have the same tobacco and you give it to two different companies, and you just tell them they make the exact same cigar and they age it the way that it's gonna taste different.
Yeah.
Everyone's different. Like, you look at. Another like innovative thing in the industry is Alfonso, French oak aging, right? Like he has the 7 different types of cedar and oak that he ages like the Alfonsos in, and it's
all of his Atabey, Byron, but
Alfonso
but has the French oaks.
So there's different mixtures of wood that he's using, and you taste it in the cigar. It's just everyone has a different way of doing it.
He also does a dramatic. He
fluctuates the humidity 15 degrees in humidity. Every couple of days or every day or something. He switches the humidity.
Goes up, he goes down, he goes up, and he goes down, he goes up, and he goes down. And I remember, so well, why do you do that? And it's, well, you fill it with the moisture, purge it out. Fill it with moisture, purge it out. And that's when you bring in the moisture and you purge it out. It helps to purge out the ammonia and all the other things in the tobacco. And if you can, as you continue, and he does this for like 5 years, I think. He does it for 5 years, just in and out, and he's like, that cleans the tobacco. When you get that cigar and you light it, and it's like that clean smoke, because that's how you do it. You essentially you filter out the ammonia and the toxins out of the tobacco by bringing the moisture in, blowing it out, bringing it in, blowing it out. It's like washing the tobacco in a sense.
And that's why, like, when I do the cigar reviews, I always smell the foot of the cigar, because it is always going to smell like the aging room that it was in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Vlad, I have to say, I think I was wrong. We talked about before the show. Someone made a comment they want to win some Somm cigar stuff. So I don't know. Maybe we do have to do a Somm contest after this. This is your people really turned out tonight, man. I didn't know you were a star-studded celebrity here.
I got to thank the Cigars Unbanded guys in Sal from LA. I just saw him blink twice. There. Proof of life. I'll get today's newspaper. So Sal, I just saw him over great, like, really knowledgeable, true cigar lover, connoisseur, every adjective you can imagine in the book. Extremely, just really, really great guy. That's all I'm going to... that's going to be a teaser. And I really gotta thank him over that. Different cigar carpenter. Thank you for the compliment, but I'll say different ideas behind it, and I certainly wouldn't compare myself to that. But when it comes to sorry, that was just, I'm reading the comments and they're funny.
No, that's Pat, great. I love when people read the comments.
Pat, what you mentioned is key, and it makes sense, especially the way Nestor explained what he does with the Atabey, right? Because earlier I mentioned that the cigars are hydrophilic. Essentially, they're going to take whatever's in the environment around them, but they'll also seek equivalence, meaning that, right, if it goes up, they're going to try and leach that humidity in, osmosis, right? And then if it goes down, they're going to try and equivalent with whatever's around them. Now, for your cigars, typically it'll take about 4 weeks for that humidity, 3 to 4 weeks, for that humidity to penetrate everything. That's at least from the Boveda tests that I've run, on my own. About 3 to 4 weeks to have equal humidity between the filler, the binder, and the wrapper. Now, especially when cigars are. So I'm still reading the comments. Yes,
It's okay.
Sal is very, very handsome. Um, sorry, this just threw me away.
It's so yeah, it happens.
As it tends to, right, especially in a retail setting, most of those cigars will, unless you're buy one box and it turns within 4 weeks, most of those will be at the exact humidity that you need it to be. And then Pat, you mentioned that you smell the foot of the cigar. I think it's a great little teaser of things to come. And you're right, you can pick up a lot of things from the aging room and just in general how it's been kept. The cleanliness of the tobacco is also something you guys mentioned, which is right. There's no ammonia, which will come from underaging / fresh tobacco, right? It didn't off gas. That's not found in any of my cigars. I've never certainly encountered it and never heard about it, because again, I want them to rest, and that's really the main thing. The other thing is I only use tobacco that's at a minimum of 3 years. The BDX does say 2 years on the Honduran broadleaf, because that's just from the first vintage that was 2020, and these were old in 2022. So I didn't want to. They were 2.5 years, but I didn't want to say 3, which is I believe in transparency, and all the blends are very clearly outlined what they are. So everything's at least 3 years, usually 3 to 5. So each of the cigars has at least 18 to 25 years of aged tobacco before it's before it hits the shelf. I got asked about the Cuban blends, so I'm gonna preface this by I haven't worked with Cuban cigars since I moved to the United States. Before that, my favorite, bar none, is the Olla de Monterey. I think the number 2 is such a classic. In fact, it's probably one of the best examples of a full flavored cigar that's light to medium. And then the double Corona. I think that's a tuxedo of the cigar world. Never goes out of style. Absolutely incredible. And then obviously we can nerd out. Like Trinidad's are amazing. In fact, when I did the vintage training, I shared the story with Sal and the guys. It's funny now in retrospect. So in Cuban terms, a vintage cigar is something that has been aged for at least 7 years post-roll. I did it in 2014, and we had 2 options. We had the Romeo and Julieta Churchill, aged for 8 years at the time, or Edmundo Dantes, right, a regional for Mexico, which is Monte Cristo. They couldn't name it Monte Cristo because someone else has the trademark, so it was Edmundo Dantes after one of his characters. So I picked an Edmundo Dantes because I've never had it before. And I was like, oh, this is cool. So second day of the training, I get offered the same option. Like, do you want to try the Churchill or do you want to do the Edmundo Dantes? I'm like, you know what? I'd rather grab the Edmundo Dantes. And the teacher at the time goes, you know what? I think you should experience this anyway, and gives me the Churchill. So I smoked the Churchill that night, leave the Edmundo Dantes without realizing that it's, rare, out of production, limited edition, regional, blah, 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 blah. Add all the expensive adjectives to it. So about 2 weeks pass by, and it's like a Tuesday or a Wednesday. And I just randomly, I'm like, oh, cool. It's Tuesday. I just had lunch. I'm going to smoke it. So I smoke it. Phenomenal cigar. About a week goes by. I smoke the other one. So I run into him. Now we're like 3 weeks after the thing. I run into him. I'm like, Zavko, do you have any more of those Edmundo Dantes? And he starts, and I mean, closest thing to a giggle that I've seen from a grown man. He goes, are you serious, my man? That's been out of production for like 8 years, 7, 8 years at this point. He's like, that's unobtainium, essentially. And I'm like, oh. He's like, why are you asking? I'm like, because I just randomly smoked them after lunch as a dog walker, essentially.
Oh, wow.
He starts laughing. He's like, did you like him? And I'm like, yeah, it was amazing. He's like, that's exactly how it should be enjoyed. So,
hey, that's all that matters at the end of the day. I mean, if you light that up and you have a good experience, that's all that matters about it. I mean, that's what we always say.
And another one that's really my favorite, it's close to, because it was a Serbian regional edition, is the Sancho Panza Slavo. So it's a 109 format from the Sancho Panza edition, called the Slavo after the Slavs, right? The Slavic people. It was pretty cool. Made, I think, 1,000 boxes of 50 only. And when I bought it at the time, when it released, the only cigar that was more expensive, mind you, this is 2015. So the only cigars that were more expensive than the Sancho Panza were the Bajiques that were like 50-something bucks, and the Esplendido. Everything else was less expensive than that. So me being not a broke college student, but not not well off, it was a treat to smoke one of those.
I've
So,
always really liked Partagas. Series D
oh
number
yeah,
4,
oh,
Series E number
the,
5. I mean, just
so I've
fantastic.
seen them
When they're
quality.
good, when they're good, because
So I
they have
smoked
consistency issues.
I smoked the D2, right, which is the pyramid. I smoked the D2 from, right, Serbian distributor, La Casa del Habano, everything. This was 2014. I smoked the D2 with the D4 labels.
Oh, really?
It was awesome. Yeah, the same cigar, like it tasted just like everything else. It just had D4 rings, and we laughed about it. So that was pretty hilarious. There's the D4 was right. So now I'm going to take a little history lesson, and I hope you guys don't mind. So Romeo and Julieta number 2 was one of the best selling sizes, right, for La Casa for Habanos. In probably mid 2010s, they slowly started picking up in strength, and I can't prove this, but I'm a big believer that they've upped the body and the strength of the D4 to be more medium full than medium, what it was previously. And it has slowly been overtaking, and I believe it is one of the best-selling sizes now, if not the best-selling, to finally overtake the Romeo and Julieta, right, which is a Corona. Now you go to a Robusto. Yeah, but I haven't. I don't smoke Cuban cigars. Just I have a tobacco license. I'm a brand owner. I just don't play with Cuban tobacco. That's about it.
Yeah, no, I mean that's a pretty fair answer. I mean, I look, we don't smoke a lot of Cubans ourselves. If we wanted them, we could get them. It's something we've explored as a blog with doing reviews. We might get into it in the future, but there's a lot of reasons why we're not in a hurry to. A lot of good reasons, but yeah, but I get it, and especially someone in your position. Why waste your time? I mean, you got more important things that you could be doing and better tobaccos to be working with at this point, and you can't sell it here anyway.
Exactly. About 2 years, a year and a half ago, I was back home, right, visiting my parents with my wife, and my dad, right, going back to the double Corona. Personally, I absolutely love it. It's one of my favorites. So it's one of his favorites as well, but it's a nice way to kind of wrap up lunch.
Yeah.
So I ended up buying 4 of those, which, give or take, transferred to American currency, was about $140, give or take. And all of those were plugged, and I could tell the plug was just underneath the band. It was a frustrating experience. I developed a hernia from just sucking on it, trying to get through, and it was a very frustrating experience for $140. So I have a problem with buying a cat in the bag. That's just
Exactly.
that's me.
And I'm glad you tell that story, because everyone's always asking about Cuban cigars, and I'm like, I mean, look, the price of Cuban cigars has skyrocketed in the last 20 to 30 months, and you're paying that premium price on cigars that are being rushed at this point. And 2, you buy a box, and at least half that box is gonna be plugged. I mean, I'll put all my money on it, and you're gonna like you're gonna be smoking that cigar, and you're gonna be like, I don't want to like put it away because I paid so much for it, but at the same time, it's like I feel like this is a chore. Like, this sucks. I can't even draw out of it.
My take is, if you guys want to spend that much money, put it all in black or red. At least you'll have a chance of doubling up. It's a 50-50 chance of you guys doubling up your money. So
yeah, because either way, that cigar is going in the trash, whether it's good or not. But
as far as there's another question: limitadas, reservas, gran reservas. Again, I'm gonna say I just don't know, don't keep track, don't care. Probably one of the nicer Grand Reservas I had was the double Corona they did in, I want to say, 2019. Someone gifted it to me when I was in Serbia, so that was a very, very nice touch. It was phenomenal. Was it worth whatever $75-$80 that it was? No, not in my opinion. Was it a great cigar? Yeah. The plugged part again. I don't know. I haven't worked with Cubans. The general consensus when I worked back with it was like 2014. It was essentially, hey, you have an issue because again, we were first and foremost a hospitality place, and my big belief is that you're not in the cigar industry. You're in the hospitality industry, and the cigars are just a byproduct. That's your avenue. That's your part of hospitality. So if you
Yeah.
can nail the hospitality part, it doesn't really matter. And if someone did have an issue, they didn't like the cigar, they didn't, it was plugged, whatever, we just replace it. That's it. I mean, that was just the take. And the number of that is because my team was so well trained. We very rarely did it. In fact, in year and a half that I had those 5 humidors, I think we replaced less than 5 cigars. So I think that was fine. Now, whether someone sucked through the draw issues or whatever, I'm not getting into it, but we were off like maybe 4 times. So.
Yeah. Well, let's go back to our contest really quickly. Let's see if anyone's got this answer. Now, Pat, you know what the answer is. We have some already. Some decent guesses. I got 35. I got 70, 74, 54, 12.
Oh, that wasn't a decent guess. Sorry.
And then we have 36.5 top, 36.5 bottom, 73 total. There was another one that was like a top and bottom one. 30 points up and 30 points down for a total of 60. Another one was 64. Pat, anybody get it right so far?
So there is 2 correct answers because of the way they cut the band.
Oh, okay. All right. Interesting enough. But did anyone get it?
So the first person who got it correctly would be, if you scroll up.
Yep.
It was Cigar Carpenter, 73 total. The correct answer is 73-74 because sometimes they cut at the halfway point of the point.
Ah, okay. So Cigar Carpenter, you win, brother.
Actually, wait, no, hold on.
Oh,
I didn't see Cab above him. 73-74, so Cab got it first.
ah,
Objection, Your Honor.
oh.
Strike that from the record.
All right, well, Cab, so you got it. I'll tell you what. Send me a message. You can send me an email. Matthew at Smokin Tabacco, SMOKINTABACCO.com. I have to spell it because everyone always gets it wrong, but I get it. I know why people get it wrong. I don't hold it against them. Send me an email, or if you find me on social media, you can send me a DM, send me a message. Just let me know your name, your address, and all that, and I'll get it out to you. You get a box of DTT and a DTT mug coming your way. Congratulations, and shout out to our friends at Dumbarton Tobacco and Trust and Steve Saka for putting this on with us. We're going to do this again next month. Every month we're doing this giveaway. Every month, brought to you by Dumbarton Tobacco and Trust. And we'll announce the contest on the next show. But that was the February contest. So congratulations to Cab, and thank you guys all very much for playing along.
I'll throw in another question, and you guys, whoever's here, can win it. But
yeah, go ahead. I was just gonna say, we had a comment. Someone wanted to win some Somms. I'm like, all right, let's do it.
And then Cigar Carpenter, I can't believe you didn't say stop the count right after he called it out. It was right there, my man. You could have just done it. Said 4 more contests. Okay, how about this? First person to mention what I said the motto of the brand is, and I'll even be more helpful. It is located on the website, and it is located on the back of BDX Blanc bands, and it starts with select. There you go. I can't help you more than actually tell you what it is. And I also mentioned it previously, so if you've been listening, easy way to win. I'll throw in your choice. You can do the BDX, the Rioja, or the Blanc. And I'll throw in my favorite cigar accessory, which is the little dual flame lighter. You can see that there's quite a bit of wind. Like my hair isn't quite going in the wind, but it's there, and it's a dual flame, right? So soft flame. Wow, this isn't really doing great for wind resistant because we got like 15 mile an hour winds.
I
But
have
it's
that
a
lighter
good-
too. That's a cool lighter. I have one of those. I got it from Vlad at TPE. It's a sweet lighter.
So we'll leave it at that.
It reminds me a lot of like
nailed it.
like
Selective
this
by
one.
choice. And
Reminds
then
me a lot of that.
Wait. They already have the knockoffs. We're not going down.
Yeah. No. I can't give you this one, but
Cab wins. Feel free to send Matt your address and your own preference, whether you want the Rioja, the Blanc, or the BDS.
wow, look at that,
And
doubling
which color
down.
lighter.
Two
We got,
timer.
blue, gold, or black, which is a funny story about the black. So initially, all the lighters were supposed to correspond to their respective blends. So there's a blue band, there's a burgundy blend, and then there's the Connecticut being the lighter, right? The BDX Blanc, so a gold. The factory ended up making the black ones because they were done with the first run on Friday. They're like, yeah, we got half of the production done. We'll do the rest Monday. So shipment comes in, we go through it, and we go for the first 250, 300 blue lighters, and then we run into the black ones. So I go, wait, what the hell is this? And because it was made right like on Friday versus Monday,
Yeah.
like, all right, it is what it is. I'm like, you know what? It's a limited edition color, and black ends up outselling the other ones for that initial run. So now I either have to make a blend with the black band, or I just have to keep making, which will probably be made. And I know someone earlier asked, I don't remember who, I could probably scroll back, if I have anything else coming up.
Oh yes, there was a comment. I'll find it, but yeah.
I have two things. Well, three things. In the immediate future, probably around PCA, maybe a little earlier or around that time. So for sober cigars, so I have the BDX Blanc blend coming in a pyramid that has an extra quarter leaf of Dominican Piloto. So it says, if you look at the back of the band, it should say selective by choice on a little pull tab, unless you got the old bands, in which case I'm sorry, there shouldn't be. There was such a small run of those old bands, maybe like 1,000 or so, in which case you have a rare printing copy. Wait, I lost my train of thought here. Yeah, so the BDX Blanc in a pyramid, that's coming out. The difference is there's a quarter leaf more of Piloto, which pushes both the strength and the profile of the and the body of the BDX Blanc blend. So the regular blend is light to medium. This makes it light to medium to medium. Apart from that, it's the same blend. It's been aged for a year, so it'll be a very limited release, and it'll be released a little bit differently than anything else. It's going to be released shop by shop rather than leaving everywhere. Each shop is going to get it. Once they sell it, the next shop down the line is going to get those as well. So keep an eye out. Probably releasing in the next month and a half. Month and a half I think is realistic. The other thing that I have is I have the working name already. So I have this 17-year-old wrapper that I have. Right, with wrappers, they have to be aesthetically pleasing and just really, really pretty. So a lot of times you will get wrapper leaves that have imperfections, whether it's holes, they just don't look nice, whatever, so you can't really use them. I'm going to make a blend that's going to be called Syrah and Shiraz. So Syrah is a originally French wine grape that owes its name to, or at least that's the idea, to a Middle Eastern village. I think it's Lebanon actually for Syrah. Don't quote me on it.
Syrah's like a drier wine, right? It's got more of a.
It is. It typically gives you red fruit flavors, but also spice, primarily white or black pepper.
Yeah.
Very, very typical of like Rhone, Cornas, and things like that. And then in the New World, it's known as Shiraz, specifically Australia, where it's a lot more fruit forward. You lose those primarily spice forward notes like black and white pepper. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the same blend under quotes, just inverted. So everywhere where we can use the wrapper, it's going to be outside. Anywhere where that wrapper can't be used, it's going to be on the binder. So it's going to be inverted. I'm still unsure if I'm going to offer both at the same time because we have to go through. I only have like a bale and a half, maybe two. So we have to do a selection there. But once that's done, um, it'll be interesting. It'll be a very very small release. I'm talking less than, probably less than 3,000 cigars. So it'll be limited. It'll come out later in the year. And then I love Napa, so I'm going to do a little homage to Central Coast and Napa Valley. Something that is, I don't want to call it missing, but it's not in the portfolio at the current time, is something that's a big, bold, nicotine heavy on a scale of 1 to 5, like a solid 5. On body level, it's 1, and it's on a scale of 1 to 5, it's a 5. Just very big, bold, brash. So if you enjoy, Californian wines like Prisoner, Dow, Justin, or a lot of the big California Napa cabs,
Yeah.
you're going to love it. That's really what it's going to be. It is not all Nicaraguan, but it is primarily Nicaraguan. That's what I have in the next 6 to 9 months. Probably, yeah. Let's call it until the end of the year.
Well, I'm excited to catch up with you at PCA and talk more about your newer stuff that you'll have there, and hopefully get to try some of it too. I wanted to say, first of all, thank you for coming on the show tonight. As I look at the time, we're kind of running out of time, but I wanted to make sure I said thank you for coming on. Coop was right. You're a great guest. Very knowledgeable. A lot of different things to talk about. And so far with the cigars I've smoked and some of the things I've seen you doing, I have a good feeling about you, and I think that hopefully you go far. I hope you do, because you bring a new twist. So congratulations on all the success you've had so far. Because like I said, it's out of all the newer brands right now, you're one that really keeps catching my attention, and that's great. So I wish you all the best, and anytime you want to come back on the show, you're always welcome to come back on. We'd love hanging out with you. This was great.
I'd love to. Thank you for having me. I'm going to send you guys some stuff for reviews. I'll make sure so you guys have it, and then anything that you don't use for reviews, feel free to run giveaways or things like that. Just kind of get into people's hands so they can give their feedback as well. And
Absolutely.
then, anytime you guys would have me, I'd love to come back again. We can nerd more about tasting. That's something that's always interesting. And then the last portion about the cigars is I've decided to make all the sizes, right? There's only 7 regular production SKUs, and they're all Robustos or Toros, plus that 6x60 box press. So everything's a standard size, so to speak. But I touched upon that earlier, that everything is blended to size. So within the Rioja, which is the blue band made at Eladio Diaz, you have 5x54 Robusto and a 6x52 Toro. And the way those were blended, essentially, I started with the Toro because that's what I wanted to have as the first run. And then when I went to the Robusto, I went through 4 7/8 by 48, by 50, by 52, by 54, 5 by 58, 5 by 50, 5 by 52, 5 by 54, 5.5 by 50, 48, 50, 52, 54. So really, it was like nailing down until we get to it. And 5 by 54 was by far the one that really encapsulated and showed what the blend can do. So if you ever get a chance to smoke the Toro and the Robusto from the Rioja, you're going to have a favorite, simply because the Robusto starts out with creaminess, morphs into spice, primarily baking spices, woodiness, the dried. There's a beautiful little dried, like, herbal undertone. Think like your dried thyme, oregano, basil, very much that Mediterranean herbs. And then it morphs back into creaminess. The Toro does the opposite. It starts spice, cream in the middle, back to spice. And it's the same exact blend. Lanceros. Okay, that's a great question. I made a limited run of Lanceros in the Rioja. I believe it's been completely sold out because that was never supposed to be released. I gave it to friends and family, essentially people who have known for years and who are just true lovers, aficionados, and they've just been bugging me to release it. But it was never supposed to be released. It was kind of like, hey, this is something that I wanted to smoke and enjoy. I don't think the Lancero captures, because of the different ratios, I don't think it encapsulates the blend as well, but it's a different take on it. You get a lot more influence of the Corojo wrappers. So if you're a Corojo lover, do search them out. I believe that the only shop that has any left, and I personally blame them for releasing that, is Humidor of Lyle in Illinois. I think they have like a bundle or two left, but essentially they're regulars, they're members. We did an event and I handed those out. Everybody fell in love with them, and they've been bugging me for months last year to release it. Then a couple of other shops tried it and they loved it, and the guys essentially strong-armed me from Humidor of Lyle, saying that they've already prepaid for those bundles and that I need to release them. But I can't release them to the just one store because that will upset everybody else who try them.
You had me at Lancero and Corojo. I mean, I love Lanceros, and Corojo is
I have none left. There was only like 600 or 700 of those. So Humidor of Lyle has some. You're right. The wrapper would shine more in a Lancero. Just from I want to make it easily understandable for most people, and I don't think the Lancero, even in that such a small amount, will be the right fit. So I opted for the Toro. Also, I primarily blended it with the Toro in mind, so I didn't actually try it on Lancero. I simply don't have enough wrapper to fool around with it, if that makes sense. Like there's, less than 2 bales. It's like bale, like let's call it 2 bales, which is 3,000 cigars, give or take.
Right.
So fooling around with it, like trying to nail the Lancero, I got where I wanted to with the Toro, and effectively once we invert the wrapper and the binder, it'll probably be less than 3,000 cigars total. Maybe knock on wood because that wrapper was expensive. It'll be more of the Syrah and less of the Shiraz, which is where the damaged wrappers are that can't be used. So we use them as a binder because the binder doesn't have to be pretty. And I'll touch upon that. I asked Hendrik Kellner Jr. one time 5-6 years back, and I'm like, "Hey Hendrik, what's the difference between a wrapper and a binder?" He pulls out a pen from his pocket, makes a hole in the wrapper. He goes, "That's now a binder."
Yeah. It's true. It's true.
I laughed at him. He's like, "Hey, that's now a binder."
Only the wrapper has to be beautiful. I mean, you can have a great leaf that's a binder that, maybe it's got a hole in it, it's cracked or something. Well, just roll it into the binder. No one's going to see it, and it's going to burn, and it's going to hold up, and it's going to taste good. So, that's an interesting way of putting it.
Awesome. We had a funny thing happen at PCA last year. Someone knocked over one of my boxes of cigars, and it was the Connecticut. It's Vegas. Everything splits here because of the humidity. It's been like day 4 at PCA, so they've been outside, in that under AC,
right.
At 3% humidity. Just fell down, cracked, and they're like, "Oh, I'm so sorry, right? Like I feel really bad. We damaged 5-6 cigars, whatever." And I'm like, "No, this is a great experience." So I took a knife out because everybody's always armed apparently. I took someone's knife, cut it open, and we smoked all the individual components. So we smoked just the wrapper, right? Like I rolled burritos right then and there. And I'm like, okay, we're just going to cut the wrapper a little bit. You guys are going to have just the wrapper. Then you're going to have just the binder, just the fillers. And people are like, "Oh my God, this is incredible." Yeah, it was impromptu and probably not, super precise, but it worked. That was a fun
does. And that's a great exercise. And we've done that on the show. Last week we did was it last week, 2 weeks ago? We did a blind smoke where I gave Pat something unbanded to smoke this and figure it out. And he actually came pretty damn close. He's got a good palate. But all those sorts of things, those are all great. And anytime there's a tasting event, or if you have an opportunity to get with a blender, or just somehow, if you get an opportunity to go through one of those exercises, please do it. Because it's awesome, and it really gets your brain working. It really allows you to think about what you're tasting, and then you smoke them individually. You put them together and smoke them, and you see how the flavors and that smoke mixes together, and how once you do that, you'll notice you'll put two together, and then one kind of I don't want to say cancels out or overpowers, but it changes. That flavor changes. So it's really cool you're able to do that, especially at the show. And with everyone around and people coming in and out and being able to go through that. That's a great experience. I wish we could do it more. We're gonna try to maybe. I don't know, but it is interesting. So maybe I'll tell you what. I'll come by the booth and we'll do it together if I get some time.
Deal.
I'd love to do some more exploration with you. But on that, I have to say, Vlad, we're running out of time. Unfortunately, I'm sorry to cut you off. I mean, I wish I had more time. There's so many things I could get into you. This has been a great conversation. And once again, thank you for being here with us tonight. And I look forward to the next time you come on, because I know that we'll have so many more things to talk about. And I get to see you in New Orleans pretty soon at PCA, so that will be fun as well. But anyway, guys, that's going to be our show this week. I want to thank everyone for coming out and watching. Congratulations to Cab, won both the giveaways. I put my email out there. Send me an email with your information. I'll send you out what I have, and I'll give Vlad your information as well. And as always, just head over to smokintabacco.com for more news, reviews, updates from the cigar industry. And next week, who do we have? Sorry, let me pull up the calendar. I mentioned this last week, like our whole month lineup. I know that we're booked pretty solid at the trade show. Next week we got Cigar Rights of America. Then it's Jack Heyer from Camacho, and then it's Oliver Nouveau from United. Then it's Nicholas Perdomo from Perdomo talking about Perdomo Legacy, and then it's our pregame show. There may be still a show the week of PC. I don't know. It depends on my traveling time and when we get together for a show. And then the week after is our post-game PCA show that we always do. So lots of stuff coming up. It's going to be a busy couple of months. Lots of announcements, lots of things. The review cycle is in full effect for the year. So there's a lot going on. So thanks to everyone for being here, and we'll see you next week. Take care.
Thanks again.